and welcome everybody today's Your Song Within Inspirational Stories from Inspirational Women. And I'm joined with Danielle Macleod, who's joined me today, but more about Danielle in a moment. But I just wanted to let those women viewers out there, those viewers who may be watching this for the first time, and to let you know what we're about here with Your Song Within. We have a desire for connecting with other women, to bring together their inspirations, or a need or a desire to be inspired, and to share their inner wisdoms and their magnificence and their beauty, because it's all there, and to sing their song within. And we're everyday women in this group who are navigating as best as we can through life, and but we want to live more consciously, and seek a compassionate, authentic connection and a sense of belonging, community with other women. So that's welcome to our Your Song Within today, and warm welcome to Danielle. And I'm so pleased to connect with you this way. It's just a wonderful honor, privilege to have your time with us today. So thank you.
And likewise, thank you for having me.
And today, there's so many things that that you do for the women in your world, and we'll come on to what you do for so many women. And we're touching on today's theme is about leadership. When I've seen it through my life, various forms of leadership, and good examples and fantastic examples from women. And you sort of have to navigate and learn, well, what's real leadership, when something may not be congruent within you as a leader, or even the word leader used to frighten me in some respect, that word leadership, big, scary, responsible word. And so for me, leadership is today a more balanced and heart-centered approach, along with all the skills and all the tools that you've learned as a woman, because we're talking about women here, to help navigate, and for them to know that they are enough to be able to do that. And that's been my lesson, is really knowing that I'm enough to be able to step up. I like to call myself an encourager. And because I'm still a little bit, won't go to the leadership word still, but we're working on it. And so, yeah, today is a really exciting theme, which I'm really excited to share with you. And I know you touched that word in your fantastic book, which is called Remarkably Easy. Is that the right title?
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Which it touches, and it's a great book out. If anyone wants to get hold of it, I'll put the links at the bottom of this interview here today. It's a phenomenal book. It really does get women to a T, and what we have to deal with. You really do know us very well.
I am one.
Because you are one, exactly. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So without further ado, Danielle, welcome, and tell us about you, what you do right now for all.
Yeah, okay. So well, before we do that, let me dive straight into this idea of leadership, because I do think the easier we can allow women to rest in it as a concept, the easier it becomes. And I want to say up front, leadership is a very natural thing for me anyway. If you looked at my personality types and all the rest of it, it's an energy that comes through me. So I don't want to denigrate from those who, like yourself, who are like, oh, I don't know that I'm ready to own it yet, or the rest of it. But I do know that, and I want to touch on this as we talk, that several years ago, I went off to do a 1-year transformation program, really, with another organization called Leadership. And this program is a secret, right? So you don't get to know anything about the content within it. It literally says something like, and it costs a lot of money for people who know they want to put more back into the world. That's kind of all it says. And I was like, well, that's me. And my coach had said to me at the time, you need to go and do this program. And I said to her, tell me more about it. And she was like, no, I'm telling you, it's time to go. And it was pivotal, really, in the most important evolution of my own leadership style. Even though, and what's so lovely about it is, when I got there, of the 15 of us who were from all over the world being in this program, there was probably only 3 of us, I think, who were in what would be known as traditional leadership positions. The rest were not. And the reason for that was, when we got there, what was so clear, and I do write about this in my book, was this concept that if you don't own that you're the leader of anything, you must own that you're the leader of your own life. And you must take leadership of your own life, in order that life doesn't do to you, but you are experiencing it as somebody who says, of course, I can't control everything, and I've no sense of certainty over anything, but I'm not going to be passive. I'm not going to be passive in my life. And actually, even for someone like me who likes leadership as an idea and wants to play with it, there was something very unburdening about that. To just say, wherever I am in my life, whatever I'm doing, the leader of my life is me, and I need to own that. And even from a career perspective, I'd been letting other people drive the car of my career. I'd literally done this thing, which I think so many women do, of I knew I wanted more, and I'm not sure everybody does that, but I wanted more, but letting other people decide what my next move would be. So, I fell into almost, actually, I'm going to say almost without exception, every professional job I've done, because somebody's gone, Danielle, we think you'd be good at this. Will you come and do it? And so it was really interesting to me to suddenly go, oh, I'm supposed to be in charge of this. And I might have pretended that I was before, but it was like, oh, me, right, okay, I'm in charge of my life. and I think that was such an important moment. And so, because I think leadership it's got so many connotations attached to it, and so many stories out in the world of actually often war or major hardships where people have had to lead a community through something incredibly turbulent. And I think that can create stories inside women in particular around, well, I'm not sure that's what I want to do in my life, and then blah, 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 we step back, we don't do the things that we could do. And so my invitation to anyone listening to this is, you might not want to own, I want to lead thousands of people, and I'm sure we'll get to that with my story. But do own leadership of your own life, right?
It seems so, well, it's so obvious, isn't it, really? We forget that we are the leaderships of our own lives. And actually, when we step up, and it's not always knowing what that first step is, because we have allowed, as you said, we, even in our daily lives, I know I can relate to your, career wise. It's like, oh, Lorna will be good at that. Let's put her in. I completely didn't know anything about it, but they put me in it, so it was like, okay, I was being led as opposed to, but I didn't know that I could do it, and we did it. Yeah. But actually in your personal life, where you actually can allow others to lead you too, and it's finding that, knowing that you're much more than actually being led by life, actually. So it's yeah.
And so it's one of those words I think can allow us to put limitations on ourselves that we don't mean to. And so, yeah, let me move on. Actually, want to know a little bit about me. I'm talking without saying anything, although many years ago when I was trained when I was media trained to go on TV and to do kind of big speech, they always said, don't ever open with who you are. It's not interesting. So you were supposed to do this whole open with a bang statement and then go, and I'm Danielle, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember trying to do that. I was doing a session with some future head teachers. And so I went straight into, like, really quickly, it was like 3 sentences. And the guy who was leading the conference just stopped me and he went, can you tell them who you are? Yeah. I thought, years of training and this has had no effect.
We're still head on, like, what do you do? What is it you do? Yeah.
So let me at least give that context. I've been co-founding a business for 3.5 years now called Remarkable Women, which is all about how do we have women lift the limitations on their life, not least, and you'll know this if you're talking about Your Song Within, our experience of women's song within, whatever the detail might be, and we did quite a big research piece on this, is women want to make a difference to people. They don't always know how to describe that, but there's a very deep hunger in them to know that one way or another, when they go to their graves, other people's lives have been changed as a consequence. And what we saw was, when we did our research piece, even the most successful on paper women were holding back from a degree of what they could do because of their beliefs around things like, I don't want to go further up the ladder because I'll have to compromise my relationships, won't I? I'll have to compromise my health. I'll have to put more risk on the table. And yes and no would be our truth. Probably more no than yes. If you choose to lead and take leadership of your own life, we can redesign all of those things. And yes, there's some edge in that, but we need to be in that exciting, liberating conversation with you so that the world gets to experience whatever it is you're supposed to be singing. The world gets to hear your song. And so that's our work now. And but it comes from, for me at least, a big corporate career that, as I said, was undesigned. So I wanted to be Prime Minister. That went well, as you can tell. And after that, sorry, I just think where I want to go to next. Someone just popped in with a cup of tea, which is very kind, but realised it wasn't perfect timing. I wanted to be Prime Minister, and so I went and did a degree in politics, and swiftly taught myself out of it, to be honest. And so left university and became a typist, would be my truth, because that's what people would pay me for. Eventually fell into HR. And literally fell in. Like every company I went to would say, I think Danielle would be good at HR, and kind of push me that way. And I got to be honest with you, I didn't really want to be in HR. I wanted, but it turned out to be one of those places that I could get to the table faster. And I suppose my real desire was to be, because I'm a strategist by nature and a teacher, was to be in those really juicy conversations where I knew exactly what was happening so that I could affect change in other places. But I didn't have any love for HR. I never qualified as an HR professional. This makes you laugh because I made it all the way to HR director, as somebody who says. And then the job I really, really wanted, I was working for one of the UK's best known media companies. I really, really wanted to run their change function. I longed for it. I mean, from the minute I was in this organisation, that's the job I wanted. And the guy who had that job, inadvertently, not knowing that I wanted it, had said to me one day as his HR business partner, you know, there's no way people are going to get my job who haven't got an MBA from Cranfield. My poxy little MBA is from the Open University, and you need X, Y, and Z to be in my team. And he was talking about who he was going to hire in. I was like, well, I can't ever get this job. But it was the one that was really singing to me. Well, look, eventually I did get it, bizarrely, and it's a long story and not interesting, only to discover I didn't really like it. And why didn't I like it? Because it was really essentially about how do you connect one widget into another widget. And that looks sexy on paper when the products are sexy, but actually what I realized was I didn't care. And it was very unnerving because I'd set my sights on that for a really long time. And I remember just having this moment of truth on the Forth Road Bridge in Scotland. It was literally like a voice, you know, it was properly like one of those films that just went, what are you doing, Danielle? It was a male voice, I remember. And I was just like, I don't know. And I remember getting to my one-to-one with my boss, which is where I was going, ex-army, proper like empire builder, thinking we were going to talk about budget. And I just walked in, I said, we've got to have a really serious conversation. And he said, what is it? And I said, I don't know what I'm on this planet for. And you have to help me work it out, because if I don't, I'm going to leave. And he just looked at me in horror and then swung his chair around and started typing on his laptop. And I thought, well, this is really interesting. Why would you do that? And he looked up and I said, what are you doing? He went, I'm getting you a coach. Which was brilliant, actually, and exactly what I needed. And that set me off on this journey. And so I met this coach and I worked with her for a long time. And then she said, one day, you're ready for this leadership program. And so I went off to do 1 week of 4 in Spain. And it was so glorious, Lorna, because I had become a very, very successful leader by losing my truth. I have a great talent, and there are many personality types like me. I'm a chameleon. It comes from childhood, and so I say it in my book. I say that line in Pretty Woman where Richard Gere says to Julia Roberts, "What's your name?" and she says, "What do you want it to be?" That's me professionally. So I would walk into a room very astute at reading people, and I would go, "What's needed here? Let me fill that space," and that made me very successful. I was also a bit of a corporate bitch, to be honest. Not a complete one, because I wasn't totally out of touch with who I was, but if push came to shove, I could be a tough cookie. And I still probably can to a smaller extent. I'm probably more alert to it. And so I went on this program, and I decided, what would it be like to have an experience of trying to be me without caring what anybody else thought of me? And I remember my coach had told me I had to write a letter to myself before I went, which was, "This is what I'm going to create." And I've still got it. I've still got my whole journal from that time, which is 7 years ago. And I decided to show up metaphorically naked. So it was a huge year of my life. But what I discovered, even on that very first week, was that I had shut down my heart in many places. And it just burst out of me. You know, when you're in those environments and you can't help yourself. If the teachers are good, you know, the things that need to come out are going to come out. And I feel like I had open heart surgery. It was astounding. And so I came back after that first week. I was due to go back for another 3 over the course of a year. And I wrote to our chief operating officer, who'd been in this big conversation around, I worked, my side of the business was customer service, call centers, engineers, all that kind of thing, thousands and thousands of people. And I said, "I think I know what we're missing." Except I probably explained it appallingly. And he flew up to Scotland and he met me for a meeting. And I remember one of the directors walked in and he said, "Have you met Danielle since you came back from Spain?" And it's funny, it's Spain, because I know that's your place too.
Yes.
This woman said, "No, I haven't." And he said, "She's very weird." But lo and behold, Lorna, 3 weeks later, I think 3 or 4 weeks, can't have been much more than that, I get a message to say he wants to meet me on video conference. And I get on this call and he says, "Danielle, we want you to run the call centers." And I'll tell you the context of that in a second. And I thought he was joking. I burst out laughing. And he said, "No, I'm not joking. We want you." And so at that time I was leading 65 people. The call centers were 10,000. And I had no experience in call center leadership. So again, another example of things just coming to me. And what I said to him was, once I'd kind of got over it, this was a second conversation, I said, "If you want me, you have to understand I am not the same person. And if you want who I've been, I need you to know I'm not willing to trade that to have this position." And he said, "I know, that's why it's time." And that's astounding, because this was a proper corporate organization. He wasn't of the mind that I was. And I remember him even saying when I left, "No one can do it like you can." And I was like, "They can, we've just got to show," you know? And but he said, "I know." And I told him, and I used this word, I said, "I'm going to leave with love."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And he went, "Knock yourself out." I mean, literally, he was like, "Do it."
Wow. Carte blanche. There you go.
Yeah. And I really did have carte blanche. And I look back and it's very clear I had carte blanche because I had so many credits in the bank.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
I think he just went, "Here's
No.
But of course, what I had to do then, Lorna, which was just incredible and terrifying, was practice this new version of me, who was the real version of me, on 10,000 people. You know, you wouldn't choose that as your entry into.
No, not in the corporate world. I know it too well.
Technically, I didn't know at all.
Yeah.
And it was just an astounding experience I remember even, you know, very soon after that, there was a lot of talk about me and the team. I remember people going, "What? But Danielle asked me my opinion today, so clearly I'd never done that before." And I was so, just do this. This is the right thing to do. And turning up and people saying, "Have you noticed you wear a lot of hearts now?" And I said, "Do I?" And of course, I had this jumper with a big heart on it, and I had earrings and necklaces, and because clearly what I was trying to do was express it in some way or another. And I don't, for 1 minute, I'm not going to say, "Oh, and you do this and everything works out perfectly." What we did see was I think our performance improved by 140% in the important measures over 3 years. But actually what changed, which I think was really important, was we started to, by virtue of me feeling I had no other choice, we started to speak more truth.
Yeah.
Because I think that's at the heart of love. You know, it's not this, let me protect you, let me stop bad things from happening to you. It is and as you know, I don't know when this is going out, but we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, right? And so it is this is what it is. And if we were truly honest about where we are now, how do we feel about it? So, you know, I remember having to do a huge restructure. It was going to be very challenging for me. And calling my coach at the time, who was just this exceptional, she's not alive, or I'd have her on this show for you. She was in her 70s when she was coaching me, just a sage.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just so honoured. It was her anniversary of her death, actually, just 2 days ago. And I remember turning up to her and saying, "Elaine, I don't know how I'm going to sleep at night. I've got to really destroy people's lives." And she smiled. She was in America, and she said, "Danielle, that's the low dream." And she said, "The low dream is, how do I do the least damage possible? Let's play with the high dream. What do you want to create?" And I said to her, "I want everyone who stays to be excited and inspired by what we're going to do. And I want everyone who goes to go knowing that we have celebrated their contribution and that we are grateful for them, that they mattered, and that we've done whatever we could to set them up for the future." And she said, "That's the high dream. That's what we're going to shoot for." And Lorna, you know, you do these big changes, and you can't make that be for everybody.
No, that's right. Yeah.
But you can, if you go into it with that intention, and as a leader of leaders, if whatever I could do to create that intention with others, which meant to my leaders, you have no permission to hide in the toilet because you don't want to speak to a person who you know is hurting. You must be present for them. That's the most important thing that you can do. It changes the experience. It allows people to express their anger, their disappointment, their frustration in ways that most corporates won't allow. And a really pivotal moment in that, and let's be in this because it's part of the heart-centered journey, there were 3,500 people going through changes. So shift pattern changes, could lose their jobs, all the rest of it. And me and my boss had done this video for everyone to watch. And some of the middle managers had to watch that video like 50 times. They chose to, but they took in teams and they watched it with them. And apparently one of them had said, because I had said something about, "We really care." And I meant it. And she said, "If I see Danielle say that one more time, I'm going to punch her in the face." And I didn't know that she'd said it, but people were so shocked who had heard it, they all assumed it had got back to me. And so when I heard about it, I said, "It's fine, you know, that's her experience of me. It's not for me to judge how she feels right now. Don't worry about it." But she had found out that I knew and had obviously felt that it was important that we have a conversation. And I thought there was going to be this groveling apology, and there wasn't. So I turned up for this, didn't know what I was going to do, turned up to have a coffee with her. And she sat down and said, "I know you know that I've said this thing." And I said, "Yeah, I do." And she just said, "How could you get it so wrong?" And I looked at her and I said, "Say more." And she said, I trusted you." She said, "And you could not have got this more wrong if you tried." And she spent, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes just letting release where she was at. And I know what the old me would have done, Lorna. I would have tried to convince her that I hadn't got it wrong. And I remember Elaine saying to me, "You're not Jesus, Danielle. you don't have all the things, but will you do 100% your best?" And I said, "Absolutely." And she said, "Well, then you can do no more." And so I knew I'd given everything I'd got. And at the end of this conversation, I just looked at her and I said, and this can make me feel really emotional, it was years ago, and I said, "I am so sorry." And she sort of looked at me and I said, "I knew when I took this on, I couldn't get it right for everybody." I said, "And I'm so sorry I didn't get it right for you." And she just looked at me, she went, "Well, I don't think I needed to hear anything else." And that was the end of the conversation. And she actually became a client later on, even though she left and lots of things changed. And I think that moments like that were pivotal. And modeling moments like that. And it's not easy. And sometimes the voice in your head says, "Don't say this, it's really self-indulgent." And people say, "Oh, I can't bear it when managers cry in a restructure meeting and make it about them." But there's a difference to being in the experience with somebody else and fully empathizing and receiving the sense that you've hurt somebody else is different, right? Making it about you and then just being with somebody else in their emotions is entirely different. I don't think everybody loved me at the end of it. I know that we had incredible results, and in terms of all the other times I've been part of this, I didn't feel like people wanted to throw knives in my back, which I count as a good measure. But I do know that throughout that period I did sleep, and I did honor what was true to me, and I did not hide from what I sensed or interpreted, and of course I might have got that wrong, other people needed.
Because you had good intentions, because you were coming from the heart.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't a reflection back to everybody, then so be it. As you said, there's going to be those people that are on board with it, connect with it, and connect with you, and they will trust you. Because I think that trust foundation, you touched on that, where that person said, "I didn't trust you." Well, she didn't trust you, and that was her own reflection of that. And I think I've come to experience that with good leadership is really building trust, because it allows people to be vulnerable. It creates that safe, when you're all sharing that part of you that they know a little bit more about you, that actually is quite surprised. And in the corporate world, we dumb down, as you say, we have this actor or actress role that we play, and it doesn't always show the vulnerability, doesn't show that part of us, that heart part of us. And I guess that's what you were showing.
And I think women don't think that they do this, but I think we all do it. Where we get in a pickle is we go to war with other people. And we go to war because we think we're right. We go to war. I mean, one of the phrases that I'd love to abolish it from the corporate world is it's the right thing for the business. And the reason I would like to abolish it is because I think it's a metaphor, or it's a secret code for we're about to do something shitty to people.
Yes.
Right? But it's good for the business. And the business is not a person or a thing. It doesn't have feelings. And so who cares whether it's good for the business or not? And we can say things like, and the truth might be, the truth is different to it's good for the business. The truth might be, we're in so much trouble right now that if we don't shave some jobs off, and if some of us don't move on to something else, and if we don't get smarter and be more efficient, then we're going to have problems this year. But often that's not the truth, Lorna. The truth is we want more money to spend on X or Y, right? We want to pay our shareholders as good a dividends as we paid last year. And people don't connect with that as a truth because they're like, "Oh, that's nice. Line the pockets of people who X and Y." And so we hide behind phrases like "it's the right thing for the business," because we think that gives us a carte blanche to do things that actually even in our own hearts don't feel good.
Exactly. And what corporates can sometimes do is they'll do what I call these tick box exercises to make people be included or feel a sense of value, or their self-worth, you know, and that gets, that underneath all that, it gets skimmed over. And I think, yeah,
it's a bit like, you know, when you've got a child and you say, do that again and you're not going to get your pudding or whatever, and then you give them their pudding, all the trust in that system is gone. Right? The minute you give on it. And so if I turn to you one day and say, I really value you, you can trust me, I put people at the heart of this business, and then 3 days later I choose something that clearly does not put people at the heart, you'll never go back to believing that very first.
No, you've broken that trust. Yeah.
And so my thing is always be careful what you say in the first place. And secondly, again, what I said earlier is bringing out the truth. And I want to be clear, I'm a commercial leader. I believe in results. I don't believe in results that sacrifice people at the sacrificial altar. And I don't think they're necessary. I just don't think they're necessary. And so over the course of those years, I spent a lot of time experimenting with, okay, so we need to do this, then how do we do that in a way that enables people to still feel in integrity in their relationship with us? And how do we speak our truth? And how do we, and I remember having a big fight with that's the guy who trained me to do a very awful segment on TV, but before that he was training us on some messages, and he was doing what you see politicians do right now on television. He was crafting a message that in essence spoke the truth, but was a total lie. And I said, I will not say it. And there was 10 other leaders at least in the room, some of whom were exec level, more senior than me, and I got an absolute kicking for it. And I remember just turning around and saying, I want to be really, really clear with you. You can tell me till the cows come home that I'm being told to say a thing. I said, I have spent a long time generating trust with my people, and I will not break that trust in order to get us through a 2-week period, because you want me to lead this operation for the next however many years. I said, so we have to sit with this longer and come up with a way to say something that is actually the truth, rather than create a polished lie. And I said, I will not say it. You can fight with me you can fire me over it. I won't say it. Because I won't sleep at night, and it will make my job so difficult. So I said, if you can find a way to get me in integrity with this, then I'll say it. But I will not stand up and speak I don't even know how we do it, and I'm really good at it, how we manage to package things so that they're the truth, but not the truth, you know? And
yes.
You make those decisions in the short term to get you over a period, and then you spend years unpicking the damage of them. And I was actually speaking to somebody about this last night. She was talking about outcomes in change, right? So when you're creating change, and what she said is, this researcher is an expert in showing you the stages in a change process where you create the future outcome. And I said, you make the mistakes often in the very first step. Where you make a decision where in your head this is not it, this is not the way we should do it, but let's just do it because we need to make a decision today. You can trace it right back to those moments. And I still did that, Lorna. I still do it. I want to be clear, because we're programmed that way, right? But if you really want to live into a heart-centered leadership life, it's calling yourself to account when you are tempted to take the easy path. And I talk about easy, right?
Yes.
But actually what I would say is it's much easier to speak the truth at the beginning than it is to unravel the nonsense.
Absolutely. And I've had many leaders, mostly sort of sort of exec and director levels, and my one leader, my one boss, so to speak, he put it out there. He put out the warts and all that he was going to experience himself too. And, the truth, he gave us the truth. And in that, you either loved him or you hated him. If you couldn't stand that truth, you couldn't be authentic, because he was being authentic, saying, this is how it's going to be. This is what we can achieve. This is the end result, if we execute it like this, trust me, this is how we're going to do it. And we trusted him. Those who followed his whole ethos, and it was based on a particular book, which I won't mention here, but it was a real foundation. And it actually, at the heart of it, this person who invented this, who wrote this book, was a brilliant leadership quality, was this heart. And I found so much inspiration. Actually, it was about love too. For me, it was this massive heart, and off that was all the, walls and barriers we put up, as we touched on earlier, how we're going to fight because we have to be a certain way, and we think we've got an opinion and right and value and all that. His leadership was authentic. It was tough as well, but he so cared. He so cared. He wanted. He would go to the nth degree for that person to do it right, to get it right. And for me, he was the best leadership. He's actually a very good friend of mine, but because we worked really well together, a lot of projects, and because he was truthful and authentic, and that's what we bought into. We trusted it, and boy oh boy, at the end of the day, he has this bit of a motto that he was always right, and he didn't want to prove himself right. It was just that actually we could walk with him on that journey, and we knew we'd be in safe hands.
Yeah,
we'd had that hunger, like you touch on in your work and in your book, actually, about that hunger to, and I don't know if I'm using it in the right context, but that hunger to get it right, to stand it together with others to get the results that we're looking to achieve.
I think the hunger's impact. I mean, that's the word I would use. And it's funny, as you were speaking that, I'm reminded of, over the course of the last couple of years, as I've done corporate keynote speeches, and that's like a third of our work, most of the work is directly with women. The question that comes up all the time from people who mistakenly think that I am not commercial, and what I always do is speak to results first, so that I'm like, elephant in the room, let's do the results first so that you can listen knowing that this is what we got. Right? Because then I'm not talking to you hypothetically. And the conversation always leans into, yes, but Danielle, so for example, pre the world we find ourselves in now, the big thing that managers think they're hiding from people is the future of artificial intelligence, right? So what does that mean for jobs? All the rest of it. And it's like, well, we won't tell them till the very last minute, because one, hopefully we can come up with a solution, or two, then they'll have stayed with us while we need them, and then we can discard them. It's one of those two options. And I always get asked this question around this, but Danielle, commerciality and things are changing, and we've got to hide things almost. They don't ever say we've got to hide things, but that's what they mean. And you can see it right now in terms of how adults are being handled through a pandemic, right? We'll tell you on Thursday. I think it's fascinating. Because what we're showing is we don't trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember saying at a conference recently where somebody asked me that question again, I just smiled and I said, this is really simple. I said, everybody knows artificial intelligence is coming. You have a bunch of people in different parts of your organization who are going, it's probably going to affect me. And because you are not speaking the truth to them, what they are doing is girding up the war chest. They're getting ready with their armor and their shields. And for those of us who are old enough to remember it, you're heading yourselves into another miners' strike in the future, because people who have worked hard for you for many years know you're thinking about discarding them in favor of a robot. And I said, there's nothing wrong per se with the evolution of our world and us learning more things. What is wrong is the inhuman discarding of people like they never mattered in the first place. And I don't normally go to right and wrong labels, but I take issue with that. I said, so knowing that it is coming, wouldn't it be more interesting to bring those people into the conversation that says, here's all we know right now. Here's all we know. We're asking the same questions you are, but collectively you might come up, would you like to help us design it? Not knowing up front, we're not going to try and save jobs that we don't need. So let's be really clear about that. Don't, in the same way that we commit that we won't, don't come at it from a self-preservation perspective. Do you want to come and design the solution with us? Now, Lorna, what I'm not saying is you're going to get the perfect answer that way, but you are, if you want to go to your grave knowing that you did not intentionally hurt people, You did not. I just think you want to go to your grave with more positives than negatives, right? It's that simple for me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
if I'm notching them up, I just want to go, I did more on that side than that side, because otherwise I left the planet worse than I found it, right? And that's not a good life in my so whatever the solution is, just know that you brought them in like adults. You showed them they could trust you, not because you pretended it wasn't going to happen, but because you were honest that it might.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it touches on, I think we're saying the same thing here, you know, about that truth, that trust, and that comes from the heart. And that actually takes a brave person in a way to show that part that they can lead that way. And actually, as we come back to the point about that we touched on right at the beginning, is that about us women being leaders of our own lives, you know. And I see two groups of women, two dear groups of women who I know that they manage life, they navigate through life in their own way. They haven't you know, seeked any help or guidance or mentoring, or they're not seekers of, well, could this be better, could I do this easier. So they're not that, and that's absolutely fine. That's that. And then I have another group of women who are on that self-inquiry. They want to take leadership of their lives in some way or form, you know, and they want to self-inquire. They want to leave this planet a lot better than they left it, as you said. And you see the different dynamics going on with the struggles and the coping mechanisms, the strategies, all of that goes on with the women who haven't seeked you know, who have not even woken up to that, maybe, or they are, but they're covering up, they're not being truthful and authentic maybe to their own hearts, and they're saying, gosh, I've got to do this again, let me strategize it, or let me try and work this through in both their professional and their personal lives. So yeah, I think coming back to that leadership and knowing how to lead our own lives first of all.
I just have this, you know, like it or lump it, we all have our own beliefs and theories, right? My deepest desire for myself, so let me speak to me and then how I would want that, is that I experience full expression. And what I mean by that, if that's a woo-woo phrase for anybody, it's full expression of, I believe I was born imperfectly perfect. And that there are a certain number of gifts and shadows imbued in me that mean there are things that, if the path was to be laid clear, that I can do in my life, I can create in my life, that are unique to me. And what I know is the only thing stopping me from doing that is my brain, right? And my mind, which is busy telling me why I can't do those things. And I happen to, correctly or incorrectly, it's my personality type, have a sense of duty to the world, in my view. And also to myself, like, I'm only going to get one shot at this, one shot. And of course I'm going to get it wrong. Of course, and I go through my own tortures the same as anybody else. But why would I not shoot for gold? Because then I get to spray that gold around the world and everybody else have some of it, you know? And so there's no choice for me. There is no choice. I think once you see that as a truth, you can't go back. Some days you might wish you could, by the way, because I do think, I said something, there's a reason why not everyone chooses to climb Everest.
I like that.
And I personally wouldn't, right? That's not my part. But once you know it in your bones, you know it in your soul, you know it in your heart, that door's closed. Try as you might, you can yank at it all you like, and you can drag yourself back to your old routines and habits, which you and I and everybody else does all the time. It's closed.
Yeah, it is. I know exactly what you mean. Is that, you know, you've taken that step onto the hero's path effectively. You've woken up to that hero within you. I know it's a cliche, you know, but actually we've woken up to our truth ultimately. And there is no back door. There is no back door should you choose it. If you're really hungry for it and you're really one-pointed focus in it, you can't go back. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't.
So I'm keen for
exciting.
It's exciting, isn't it? It's exciting. I'm keen for everyone to be on this side of the door. And equally, you know, someone spoke to me recently and she was like, I just want to be like you. And I said, you're not really it. I said, I mean, you've seen, I've just recently put a blog out with my own,
which is fantastic, by the way. Yes.
Yeah, and a little bit nerve-wracking, but with my own experience of wanting to pull back and wanting to inquire, have I done the right things, and all of those things, that doesn't change. In fact, I think sometimes it gets more extreme because you've made bigger choices and bolder choices. And so I said, so there isn't a silver bullet. It's a life path to say, I am on the path to full expression. And one of the things you have to choose to be on that path, Lorna, is to be the leader of your own life. It's that simple.
It is. We've come back full circle. I think that's a really, as we wrap up, actually, Danielle, that's a really lovely point to end on. So true. I love hearing that. Yeah, so true. And you are an amazing, amazing woman and leader in your own right, and such a true expression of what it is to take this life and navigate in the best way you possibly can, and encourage other women to do the same.
Thank you. I'll hold the mirror back to you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.